Do you have a favorite species to hunt?
Oh, I think hybrid, because of where they live, because of where they take you. That's the high mountain stuff. And for me, I think now it's all about the where it's happening. Like, it's the kind of, I heard it said before, it's not trophy animals, it's trophy ground.
Yeah.
So where is this awesome terrain that you're hunting, and what's the adventure, and how can we make more adventure out of it? And Ireland is a small place, so sometimes you have to kind of go out of your way to make adventure. But we do it nonetheless. And
these are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. The Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Sig Sauer. Sig is a leading provider and manufacturer of firearms, electro-optics, ammunition, air guns, and suppressors. For over 250 years, Sig Sauer Inc. has evolved and thrived by blending American ingenuity, German engineering, and Swiss precision. Today, Sig Sauer is synonymous with industry-leading quality and innovation, which has made it the brand of choice amongst the U.S. military, the global defense community, law enforcement, competitive shooters, hunters, and responsible citizens. Sig Sauer is also a premier provider of elite firearms instruction and tactical training at the Sig Sauer Academy located in New Hampshire. For more information about Sig Sauer and its complete line of products, visit sigsauer.com. What a remarkable time to be alive that something like this is even possible. So my guest today is Will O'Meara, coming at us all the way from Ireland. How are you?
The crack is 90 here, as they'd say, James. I'm very well.
I don't know what that means.
The crack is 90. It means we're having great fun.
Oh, that's awesome. I might try and use that. Might get me arrested here, but we'll see. How did you get into hunting?
When I was a kid, we grew up on a farm, and both my parents were very into horses, and it was my mother's business was producing young horses for hunting and eventing. So hunting on horseback was basically hunting with hounds, following the hounds on horse, and hunting fox. And I suppose that was my first introduction to hunting, which is far removed from what I do now. But it gave me a sense of adventure. It gave me a sense of the pursuit and the traditions that are associated with it, and hard work that goes into hunting. My dad passed away when we were quite young. And I think as a direct consequence of that, my mother was very good in that she went to great efforts to give me time with father figures, so friends of hers that she would have known. And for whatever reason, I always had an interest in sending a projectile at an intended target, whether it was throwing stones or firing a catapult or sneaking out with the 2.2 or the shotgun. I was always that way inclined, and she put me in the right place with the right people, in a very casual setting and for fun, to do some hunting. And those guys who I'm still great friends with and would have been in their kind of, one in particular, Liam Brown, was maybe in his early 20s when I was maybe 10, and he would have taken me flighting ducks, and another guy would have taken me shooting snipe and woodcock. And I think I got a crossbow when I was about 12, a little pistol crossbow. I thought I was I think American Ninja was big on the scene at the time. And the only adversaries I could find was in the hunting domain. So as a kid, I was busy making traps and doing all those things you do when you're a kid that on reflection probably isn't the best wildlife management strategy, but it was harmless enough, I think.
I've got some questions about the horseback hunting, because I think that, that doesn't really exist here. Certainly not for foxes. We've seen some of that in maybe some historical movies, something along those lines. I have a feeling most folks don't know that is still a thing that happens. When you're doing that, you've got the hounds or your dogs out pursuing the fox, and then keeping up with them horseback is no easy thing to accomplish. And that's why some of these competitions, some of these events are based around the type of obstacles that you might encounter. What kind of gun is somebody bringing along for something like that?
Well, there is no gun.
There's no gun.
There's no gun, no. So it's the hound pursuing the fox. And most of the time the fox goes to ground or escapes, but is occasionally caught by the hounds. And when it's caught by the hounds, it's a very quick end. It's something that I haven't done in, 25 years, probably. It's something I did as a kid and a teenager, and kind of left behind then when motorcycles, rifles, and fishing rods and all that kind of hit the scene. I kind of left that behind me. I think because I associated with just hours of endless toil with horses, because it was really a hard work industry. And I think when I joined the army, that I didn't have the location or the means to pursue it or to continue with it. And my interest had kind of moved on as well. But I still completely respect it. And it's quite common in England, although it's been banned there now, and it's still common in Ireland. And you get a lot of parallels between Ireland and England. But the difference often between them is the country sports pursuits in England are sometimes seen to be that kind of pastime of the entitled or the kind of landed gentry. Whereas in Ireland, there seems to be a different approach to it. It's very much a working man's pursuit. And the same with shotgun hunting, with upland bird hunting, as you would call it. And that's very much a kind of local pursuit that is undertaken by, Joe Soaps, just normal people who enjoy going out hunting. Now, it's done in a different way. It's less organized, it's less driven hunt, but it is interesting. And I think I was lucky to have those guys who were local carpenters and builders and farmers who my mum recognized that she could pair me up with, and off we'd go, so.
Well, that's wonderful. And I think that there's some elements of that in shotgunning here in the US today, like some of the Bob White quail operations. There's some places that try to mimic sort of that Scottish driven pheasant hunt, but most upland bird hunting is definitely a blue collar endeavor, and it's just guys going out with their dog and hiking around and hoping to find a bird to shoot at, bring home and eat it.
Absolutely, yeah. I was only hunting pheasant today over my Springer Spaniel, and I was out with two friends of mine. One of them who had his son with him, and we had, I think, 5 Springer Spaniels, and we spent maybe 6 hours hunting this morning. And I think we had 7 cock pheasants for our work. Lots of ground covered. The dogs were working hard, heavy cover, and putting birds up in good retrieves, and some reasonable shooting. So,
that's good.
A few pheasant in the cold room.
The shotguns that you guys are using, are they mostly doubles, or are you using some pumps and semi-autos?
Most common is under and over double, and semi.
Okay.
Yeah, so I use a semi. I use a Beretta. It's an old Ulrika L391, so it's an aluminium framed semi.
Yeah, real quick gun.
Yeah, nice gun, nice and light, easy to handle. Very purposeful. I downgraded to it from an under and over when I was trying to put some money together to buy my house, whenever that was, 10 years ago. So yeah. It was probably a couple of $100 secondhand gun, and I still enjoy it and get on well with it.
I sold my favorite rifle to be able to buy my uniforms when I went into the Marine Corps.
Oh.
And
there's a privilege. You get to buy your uniform.
Yeah. Which, the Marine officer's uniform, like just the dress blues, it's $2,700. It's a really expensive thing that you wear, once a year, but it is what it is. And although I miss that gun, I've got better ones now, so it's okay.
Yeah, but at least you can still parade around in your uniform if the notion takes you.
Yeah, a skinnier version of me could still parade around in that uniform. I think I might blow the buttons out of it if I tried to squeeze into that thing today.
We had a similar setup in that we had to buy our we called it our Superfines. So they were that was the same dress you're talking about.
Yeah.
Superfine, our number one uniform. And you had to it was tailor made, so you had to go to the tailor, a civilian tailor, and he'd make it and fit it to you, and he'd have a roll of the material that it was made from. And he would you would have to pay for it up front in a similar manner, but you would reclaim your uniform allowance back at the end of the year, so you'd get the money back, and which was a bit of a bonus at the end of the year. But yeah.
What was your job in the Army?
So I joined the Army as what we call a cadet. So that's basically your officer training. So I joined and I did 21 months of officer training in what is our military academy, or our military college, as we call it. And from there, I had been in university before that. I was studying law before I joined the Army, and I was working on a building site as well. And I really had a strong drive to join the military and to pursue that career of a soldier. And that was something I kind of alluded to earlier, that I was always into it. And it was recognized in school even that this was something that, the kind of people presumed I would do. And I didn't do it immediately because my mother saw the merit in having a university degree. And I discovered then that the Army would actually put me through university, or allow me to finish my degree. So going to university and being paid seemed like a great idea. So I joined the Army, did my training, went back to university, finished my degree, and then I was posted to the Cavalry Corps. So it wasn't, as some presume, the horse. We had moved on to the mechanized version. But being Ireland, it was quite small, and we were really a formation reconnaissance with some limited fire support capacity. And I really went down that route of the recce, of reconnaissance, and that brought me to the UK, where I spent 6 months with the British Army doing my formation reconnaissance commander's course. And that really gave me a taste then for, the recce end of things and all that fun, digging holes in the ground, hiding in there and playing around with Ziploc bags and filling up bottles in the middle of the night with your own fluids and all that goes with that.
Yeah, and hopefully not making a mistake about which one is water.
Yeah, wide nozzle and narrow nozzle. I'll let the rest up to your imagination. But we, so that really gave me a taste for that. And I suppose the vehicle thing was big for me as well. So that's what pushed me to the cavalry. Was I was into the soldiering stuff, but I was also into the vehicles. And I had really kind of, as a young fella, I bought 2 Land Rovers when I was 16 and rebuilt them, and that was my first car. I bought my first car when I was 12, and kind of for 30, the equivalent of probably $30. And I used to drive that around the farm and thought I was like the Dukes of Hazzard. Painted it up like that and everything, like the flag on the roof, and it was hilarious. But anyway, I really went down that route of gathering my tactical and technical expertise, and I did a couple of missions overseas. My first mission was as I was actually in charge of the vehicle maintenance, so maintaining all the armor. So that was interesting. So I did like all the driver training, all the off-road recovery, organizing all that, and it was in Kosovo. So it was at that stage. But I also then kind of used that because I had lots of time and I was very eager. I took on a training role as well, and we did lots of cross training that I organized with other nationalities, and we did some stuff with the US guys down in Camp Bondsteel at the time, and got some range time, and all that kind of stuff you do. That's kind of good fun when you can do it, when the environment is passive enough to allow it. And I suppose from there, that journey took me to gaining kind of an appreciation of all the hard work that goes into the kind of really like, what's the most difficult things I can do in the army, and I always looked at that. What's the next difficult thing to do? And I think the recce stuff kind of put that into me. And my next mission was to Chad in Central Africa, which was the Great Adventure. And I was the second in command of a recce company, a reconnaissance company. And we basically specialized in long range patrol down along the Sudanese border. And we did lots of kind of covert and overt OPs, checkpoints, patrolling. And it was the Great Adventure. No roads, no tarmac at them, very little vehicles. And I got to see what the wilderness of Africa was all about. And those Wilbur Smith books that I had read as a kid kind of started coming into reality. And it was a great adventure. And my company commander on that adventure, a guy called Mick O'Brien, had just finished up in the Army Ranger Wing, which is our special operations unit, which was established in the early 1980s as a counterterrorism capacity. And we get on like a house on fire on that trip, and we were very similar in our approach and demeanor. And he said to me, have you thought about doing the Special Forces selection course? And I said, not really. I said, I'm interested in it, but I haven't given it, I was probably too busy pursuing my career as a professional off-road motorcycle enduro and motocross racer at that time. That's where my focus was. And he said, you need to think about doing this. And he said, you're made for it. And that little bit of encouragement was something that wasn't very common, that people weren't really, the only talk you'd hear of selection was horror stories and, oh, you need to be this to do that. And, it always seemed like that kind of really shrouded in mystery, but there was, I suppose that was the only encouragement I needed. And that became my new mission. And so that was kind of, I suppose, I went and did that on my return from overseas. And yeah, that's a whole other story.
That's pretty amazing. Did you work with tanks at all?
So we had the Scorpion, which is a light tank. It's an aluminium hulled tank, if you can see the wisdom in that. But when I went back to the UK in 2009 and I did what's called the Combined Arms Tactics course, which teaches company commanders as majors how to, which I know you do it slightly differently, but for us a company commander was a major, and it teaches you how to tactically deploy in a battle force or in a battle group environment. And that's the only time I got to stand in the turret of a Challenger 2 tank and give the direction to advance. Northing 9 or 3, reporting in position.
And, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, oh man, 70 tons of rolling awesomeness, shock and awe. Holy shit. That's like just, yeah, I think, yeah, that was, it's pretty cool. But no, I think I was actually happier sneaking around, you know, doing the little, in the little tanks, sneaking around and then jumping out and running around when you needed to trade speed for stealth. And
my path was much the same. And the armor training for the Marines is combined with the Army. So we got to learn how to use all of the Army's vehicles as well. And half of that school was a reconnaissance school, scout reconnaissance. And there was an armored reconnaissance course afterwards. It was some of the most fun training that I ever did. Probably the very most fun training I ever did was the recon element of that Army armor school. And then by the time I got back to the Fleet Marine Forces, it was just tanks, but having that knowledge and training of the recon aspect of things was tremendously helpful. And coming from a hunting background, I was much better suited for recon than I was for actual armor. You know, here on the ranch and in this rural area, we use vehicles, sure, but you know, mostly you're kind of on foot figuring it out, and then that's what recon is largely about. So yeah, it was a wonderful time for me, and it's fun to hear the similarities between your path and mine, although you ended up getting deployed to different areas. When you were in Chad, was that a UN mission?
It was EU4, so which was a European force.
Okay.
That was excellent because it had a lot of funding, and our ROEs were much more robust and suited to the mission. It later became a UN mission, but when I was there, it was a European force mission. And my mission to Kosovo was a NATO mission. And then my next mission was to Afghanistan, where I was actually worked with, my boss was a US Army guy. And we were just 6 paddies in the middle of Afghanistan, surrounded by US guys, and it was a multinational environment. But and then my last mission was to Lebanon. So it was lots of variety. But you asked me what did I do in the Army? I did everything.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah, everything. And the beauty about being an officer in the Irish Army was there was very much a focus on leading from the front and being the example. You can't be an officer in a recce unit without having done your recce course and your recce commander's course. And you're expected to do those courses, to excel in them, to perform in your appointment, and to lead from the front. You can't just struggle through it. And one of the things I really enjoyed when I was in the cavalry was I instructed and eventually ended up as the chief instructor in our cavalry school. And reconnaissance was a major part of that. And for me, I love nothing better than going out, like all that navigation, you know, getting around at night, getting into position, all the observation, you know, it's great fun. And coupled with that, I love fixing stuff and I love solving problems. And that's like all the vehicle stuff is like solving problems. It's navigation, it's recovery, it's fixing, it's like making it happen. And I think all those skills that I had as a kid, that they were it was kind of a necessity, you know. It was like, you know, you just have to figure it out, like, and my mom was very good. Like, I recognize now, she always threw us in at the deep end, and she said, listen, I need you to do this. And you'd be like, oh, I haven't done that before. And she goes, I tell you what, there'll be someone here. She'd come back and she goes, someone here at 9 o'clock in the morning for 20 minutes, or at 8 o'clock in the morning for 20 minutes on their way to work, and they'll show you how to start that. And there you go, 9 years of age, and you'd be changing the tines on a hay bob, or you'd be pointing a stone wall, or you'd be whatever it is, fencing or fixing a tractor, or, you know, it was yeah. And I think I just kept doing that, fixing stuff and solving problems.
It's a wonderful thing and a wonderful problem that, as a young officer, because leadership in the Marine Corps is much the same as what you're talking about. But as a young officer, you've had all the formal training that they can possibly give you. And then you have no actual real world experience. And then you get to the fleet or whatever it is, when you're actually doing the job with your Marines or with your soldiers, with your troops, they all have more experience than you, but they're also looking to you for leadership, and you need to lead from the front. So the guys that can figure out, okay, now is my time to be humble and ask everybody for their perspective and their opinion and their advice. And then you take all that and you add to it what you know. And then you say, all right, boys, thanks for what you said. Here's the plan. Follow me. Here we go. And you end up doing things that you have no idea how to do. And you figure it out. You go along the way and you make all the adjustments that are required to accomplish the mission. And that's a wonderful thing. It's gotten me in trouble a little bit as a civilian afterwards, because I have no fear about taking something on that I have no idea how to do. And sometimes in the civilian world, if you say, yeah, I'll do that, there's an expectation that you know what you're doing. I don't. Yeah. But I do know that I can figure it out because I've done something that's significantly harder before, even if it's different.
I completely agree. And my outlook on life is, if someone can do it, I can do it. Now, I also have learned to appreciate the value of an expert. So in absence of an expert, I heavily rely on the font of all knowledge, which is YouTube, to help me solve those problems that I don't know how to do. But I think the past year has been a case in point. And I mentioned earlier that I spent a little bit of time working on building sites and in construction before I joined the Army. And I took on a rebuild of our house on the 1st of March last year, which is the first day after our hunting season. So I say that on the 1st of March, I put down the rifle and picked up the Kango hammer, or the jackhammer. And basically that was another journey in, like, you know, and people look at you and they go, but how do you know how to do all this stuff? And you're like going, I don't, like, but it's not rocket science, or, you know, just figure it out, like, you know, what's the worst that can happen?
Even if it was rocket science, there's books, there's videos, there's experts. Like, I think I could figure that out too with enough time. You know, there's people that can support you in figuring this stuff out. Like, you don't have to be intimidated about it. But yeah, consulting experts, very good decision. Like, if you can find an expert, find them, ask them, because they're passionate. The only way that anybody becomes an expert in anything is by being passionate about that subject. And people who are passionate tend to want to share that passion. So they're not going to just like hold on to that knowledge. There's some people that are like that, but most people are willing to help.
Yeah. And leverage that, like, leverage it, ask them for their, you know, get that good knowledge that you need in order to do it yourself. You know, if that's what you have to do, if you're in a position where you have to do it yourself, then, you know, get all the advice and help you can. If you can get someone to help you, grand. If you haven't if it makes more financial sense to you because you make twice what they make, and, you know, then that's a different story, like, you know. But, you know, I think for me, it's a self-sufficiency thing. Like, I like taking responsibility for stuff, for my own stuff, and getting it done. And you mentioned the planning earlier, and, you know, you get all the input, and that's something that really, I don't know, I think in our formal training early on, it was kind of the orders process was, you get your mission and your commander's or your higher commander's intent, and you go away and you make up your plan and you kind of deliver this magic show, and that's the plan. Whereas when I got to special operations and started my soft training, you learned a different model of planning, and basically it's everyone has an input, and you really war game stuff and bounce stuff off each other, and there's no idea is too crazy or too loopy, because you're trying to be unconventional, not for the sake of it, but for the effectiveness of it. And we were really given great freedom and scope to explore that unconventional approach. And when everyone has really, put in ideas and put in inputs, and and because you operate in small teams, you kind of come to the natural conclusion. And there's times where, as the leader, you have to go, listen, for X, Y, and Z reason, this is what we're going to do. And it doesn't have to be a democracy, but it's super effective.
I talked with General Conway about this. He was the commandant of the Marine Corps when I came in, and he retired while I was on active duty, and I had the pleasure to hunt and fish with him a few times after both of us were out of service. And he described military leadership as knowing when to be autocratic versus democratic. And that's kind of what you're talking about, where you accept and solicit advice and opinions from everybody. And once you've had all that, then it becomes autocratic, and all the votes have been cast, but the buck stops with me, and I'm going to make the decision, and we're going to do it. Doesn't mean I'm not going to change that decision if the situation changes, because I am.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very difficult thing, but it tends to have a good result. Tends to have a good result when it's all over with.
Yeah, and what you're talking about there, flexibility and the confidence to allow others to change your mind. I love it. Like, I love nothing more than someone coming to me and going, this thing you said, I think there's a better way of doing it. And you're like, I'm all ears. Let's chat that out. Let's work that out. And that's fantastic. Like, because number one, that person feels like they can approach you. Number two, you're open-minded, and it's like, what's the objective here? The objective here is to achieve the mission, not to be right or to have championed the plan or to be Mr. Good Idea. It's like, it's all about getting the job done. And I think people respect that more than, just being right at the first instance. Stay flexible. And it's the same with hunting.
Yeah.
And when I'm guiding,
very much so.
I'm sure you get this when you're guiding. I'd have a client or a hunter ask me, what's the plan? And I'm going, well, we're going to stalk up here. We spotted the animals. I kind of generally, a lot of it's very open mountain. So you kind of have to feel your way in on the stalk. But I'll say, look, we're going to stalk up here and see what happens. And they're like, kind of looking at you, slightly in disbelief, and kind of going, is that your plan? Like, and I'm like, yeah, well, sure, anything can happen. And if they ever ask me, do the stags ever run around in circles 3 times and start barking? And you might say, no, as sure as hell, the stag will run around 3 times and start barking. So those, like, and I think what I'm trying to say here is, there's always stuff you've seen for the first time. There's always something new. And then I think with that, you also build up the experience to know, to be able to read a situation, and you can tell them what's going to happen. So you get into a position, you say, that stag is going to walk, he's walking towards us. There's another stag between us and him. He's going to stop. They're going to face each other. Or he's going to stop. That other younger stag's going to stand up. They're going to face each other. He'll be broadside, and then you can shoot. So don't shoot him when he's walking. And sure enough, that unfolds, and they're like, how do you know that? And you're like, going, I don't really know. It's my brain. I take no credit for it.
Because I've played this game before, and
Yeah,
there is an element of predictability and patterns if you can see enough of the situation.
yeah.
I've done this with fishing a bunch of times, where somebody will finally make like the cast that I was trying to get them to make. And I know this water intimately. I could draw you a map of the rocks on the bottom of the river. And I've got a pretty good idea where a fish is going to be and what type of a cast is required to get that fish to eat. And when they make a good cast, there's been a couple times when I've been able to count them down. I'll be like, you ready? It's going to happen in 3, 2, 1, boom, fish hits. But there's an element of predictability in there. And a lot of guides have played that trick before. And of course, a client thinks that you're an absolute sorcerer when something like that happens.
Yeah.
And it feels good for everybody. But yeah, that is fun. What aspects of your training in sort of the Big Irish Military and then SOF afterwards do you feel like informed the way that you hunt today?
So I think that the land navigation part is very useful. I think that the general exposure to humping around the mountains with a heavy pack builds that resilience and kind of knowledge that you just keep plodding along and you get to wherever you're going. I think that all the SEER skills give you confidence to operate in any environment anywhere in the world, and know that, look, at the very worst you can get to somewhere if you need help. I think from a guiding perspective, the medical training gives you something very useful that hopefully you never need to use in your back pocket. I think that so just before I joined joined SOF, so I had done, when you're an officer, after my selection course, I had passed my selection course and I knew I had done well, but as an officer, you're not taken in immediately. So the other ranks go in like the next day, and you have to sit and wait because there's only so many positions for an officer. So what I did was I decided to use that time to add more strings to my bow and get on courses that I hadn't been on and I wanted to do. And one of those was a sniper course. So I did my basic sniper course. And that led to so maybe 9 months later, I was brought in to the unit and I commenced my special operations operator training. So you're basically your SOF-Q, we used to call it, your Special Operations Force qualification course. And we, after that, I went and I did more sniper training, my Special Operations sniper course, and spent some time in the States with doing training and competitions. And then we did some multinational courses in Ireland where we had lots of French, Canadian, US guys come over. So all that volume of sniping experience, and because I was into it, I was into shooting, and I was into the technicalities of it and the practicality of it and the application of it. And I think part of that was because I really loved hunting. So I really wanted a lot of these tools to apply in the operational environment, but also knowing that this would pay dividends in my pastime as well. And I think it has. So I think all of that, I think like everything really, it really all adds up to being very like problem solving, shooting, moving, shoot, move, medicate, communicate, like it's all there.
Yeah. The species that you primarily hunt for now, you talked about hunting for birds a little bit, and the stag hunting, is that red stag or Sika stag?
So in Ireland, we have 3 species. Well, 3.5, I suppose. We have.
I feel like there's a joke in there somewhere.
So we have fallow
Okay.
deer. They are the most widely distributed species in Ireland. They were introduced by the Normans back whenever that happened, 1,000 years ago maybe. Then we have red deer, which have been here since the ice. It's said some conflicting evidence has recently arisen about that, but they've been here for a long time. And then we have the Sika deer, who were introduced in the late 1800s. And I hunt all three. So in the past month, I've hunted all three.
What's the half species?
The half species are Sika red hybrids.
Really?
Which are red. Yeah, so red deer in County Wicklow occupies the open mountain terrain, much like the Scottish Highland Reds. And they probably looked very like the Scottish Highland Reds. And with the introduction of Sika in the late 1800s, they were in a park environment. And then as time went on, I think during World War I, the perimeter of the estate fell into disrepair, and the Sika got out. And the Sika are a very aggressive deer. And the male stags will fight off a red stag, and you might go, but the size difference. A good Sika stag is probably an equal weight and probably muscularly more dense than a Highland red stag. So the red stags are big, empty, hollow carcasses, like they're big framed, but they actually don't weigh that heavy. And the Sika started covering the red hinds. And what has resulted is in County Wicklow, we have a huge population of Sika. And on those high ground, high open mountain, we have a population of hybrid deer. The reds, there are no pure reds left.
And a hind is a female stag, right?
A female stag? It's an interesting concept.
Sorry, not a female stag.
A female deer. Yeah.
A female red deer. So we would say doe, or if it was an elk, we would say cow. Just
Sure.
we don't have those names and species here, so I'm just trying to clear it up. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, cool. So what we have is in Ireland we call, for reds they're stags and hinds, for Sika they're stags and hinds, and for fallow they're bucks and does.
Okay.
So it's similar-ish to your elk.
Yep.
Versus your whitetail, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. But having said that, I think I've shot a female stag. So
okay.
a deer that had all of the characteristics of a female, but had in fact some male genitalia.
We shot a whitetail here a couple years ago, and it had one antler that was still in velvet when it should have been hard-horned. It had female parts. It had an udder with milk, but it also had testicles.
Oh, wow.
It had a lot going on. I'm kind of glad that we shot
stag.
it. Yeah. Female stag. Very modern.
And where I live is very predominantly Sika and hybrids. And you get with hybrids, you get everything in between. So you get the ones that look very red-like, and you get the ones that look very Sika-like. But there'll be a trait in the antler or a metatarsal gland or the tail that is out of character for that species. So we have a very, very healthy population of deer in Ireland.
Do you have a favorite species to hunt?
Oh, I think hybrid, because of where they live, because of where they take you. That's the high mountain stuff. And for me, I think now it's all about where it's happening. Like, it's the kind of, I heard it said before, it's not trophy animals, it's trophy ground.
Yeah.
So where is this awesome terrain that you're hunting, and what's the adventure, and how can we make more adventure out of it? And Ireland is a small place, so sometimes you have to kind of go out of your way to make adventure. But we do it nonetheless. And much the same, like last week I was in County Kerry hunting woodcock. And again, it's high mountain stuff, and it's hunting with the shotgun for woodcock. It's exciting, it's high mountain, it's adventure. Yeah, it's much like the hybrids. I think woodcock and hybrids would be the two. But
do you have a favorite to eat?
Yeah, probably the same.
The hybrid?
Probably the same, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think any venison, we at home here, we eat, I'm going to say about 80% of our meat is wild meat. And I suppose we're lucky enough that we can hunt regularly enough, and we have a long season, and I have lots of access to ground. So that's a great bonus to that, is that wild meat, and we really value it. It's fantastic.
When is the season?
So the season for deer opens on the 1st of September and runs till the 28th of February. The season for bird hunting, by and large, runs from the 1st of November to the last day of January. And there are some exceptions to that. Ducks start earlier. Ducks start on the 1st of September. We can hunt grouse for the month of September. And then the season for deer divides up. The first 2 months are stags only. The middle 2 months are stags and females. And the last 2 months are females only.
Okay. If someone wanted to come and hunt in Ireland, come from the States or from anywhere else for that matter, how would they even get started? Do they need to hunt with an outfitter? Is there public land that they can hunt on? How does it work for non-residents?
Yeah, there is no public hunting land. If you were coming as a visitor to Ireland, my recommendation would be to come to a reputable outfitter, because it's not expensive. And you will be safe in the knowledge that you're going to get good hunting, because it's quite a journey to make. And I think I do some guiding for an outfitter, and he has been doing it for 30 years. And he said guys from all over the world come. And I think in all that time, he said one person who was unsuccessful. And I don't think it was the fault of the outfitter.
Okay. Yeah. This is a non-hunting question, but this is part of a debate that's been going on for many years, and I need you to help me solve it. When I was coming back from Afghanistan, we stopped in Shannon for about 5 hours. And that was the first time that we were able to drink, right? So the whole company of Marines gets off the airplane, head into the airport, and we start drinking. Now, the debate is, if you are in the airport of the country, then you can't really claim to have been in that country. However, I feel like since I've drank Guinness and it's not an import, that maybe that's a workaround. So have I been to Ireland or have I not been to Ireland?
Oh, yeah. When you look at the map, where's the airport?
I don't know. Looks like Ireland to me.
That's what I'd say.
Okay. Thank you. I feel like I just won this debate, and I cannot wait to talk to a couple of these Marines about it.
Yeah. Like there isn't much else in Shannon, only an airport. Actually, the town of Shannon, and this is quite unusual in Ireland, because most towns in Ireland, I'm going to say nearly 99% of the towns in Ireland have been there since, I don't know, like for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years. No, well, not thousands, but definitely hundreds and hundreds of years. Shannon was built around the airport.
Oh, really?
So there would be no Shannon town, only for the airport. So I think you could add that to your argument.
Okay. Where in Ireland do you live?
I live in County Wicklow, which is on the eastern side, just south of Dublin. And it's a mountainous area, which is called the Garden of Ireland because of its natural beauty.
What's your weather like?
There's 3 types of weather in Ireland. It's either raining, it's just stopped raining, or it's just about to start raining.
So rain gear is pretty important to you.
Rain gear is pretty important, yeah. But if you don't have any, remember, skin is waterproof.
That's a good point. And Marines are amphibious by nature.
Yeah. So it's not where I grew up. I grew up in the southwest in North Cork, which is more a better place from an agricultural point of view. But Wicklow is the home of deer, and I suppose it's no surprise that I ended up here.
Yeah, that's a good reason to go to a place and stay there, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and when we were deciding where would we live, myself and my wife, she was in the military as well, and we were both based about 35 minutes from where we now live. And we decided that we enjoyed the mountains so much, like if it wasn't mountain running or mountain biking or orienteering or adventure races or hunting or whatever it was, we were in the mountains. So we decided, well, you have a choice. You can live in, like, beside where you work or in a town or whatever, and you can travel to your fun, or you can live where your fun is and travel to town when you need to go there. And I think we made the right call. I couldn't live in a town anyway. I don't think I'm cut out for it. I like strolling around in my boxer shorts too much. With or without shotgun.
I think you made the right decision.
Yeah.
Well, cool. What are some do you have any travel plans this year? I know it's hard to make plans, but are you going to be hunting outside of Ireland at all this year?
I was in Greenland with Mr. G, who I know you're friendly with Rob and the Spartan crew back in September.
Okay. And
what I'm going to do for the rest of this year is make the most of what we have here on our doorstep, because I think sometimes and that trip actually taught me that, because we were gone for 2 weeks, and I kind of 2 weeks before it, you're building up to go. 2 weeks after it, you're making up for lost ground and lost time and playing catch up. So it's 6 weeks really gone, which is, it's a month and a half of the season, which is, it's a fair slice of it. So I think I need to focus more on enjoying stuff at home, because it's the time for doing that. And I think I'm going to focus my attention more on family adventures than solo hunting missions abroad in the immediate future. Now, having said that, I do want to go to North America and hunt some public land for some high country adventure, whether it's black bear or mule deer, something along that lines,
Well, when you're ready, you let me know.
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay.
Forget all that stuff I said.
That's the spirit. No, I feel like mule deer would be your thing. Black bear hunting in the springtime is a wonderful thing. And we hunt in these big river canyons, and they're inverted mountains. Okay. They're incredibly steep. You might have to hike for 5 or 6 hours to get from the river up to the rim. And that's where these bears are living. And you've kind of got to go until you can find like the green grass line. And that'll be maybe 1,000 vertical feet, 300 meters below the snow line. And these bears are moving in and out of the brush, and it's a lot of glassing. It's a lot of hiking. It's April, May timeframe. So we've just started to shake winter off, and it's getting warm, and you can start hiking in a t-shirt again a little bit. It's just a wonderful time of year. But the mule deer thing is special. Of course, it's a deer, and you've got the antler aspect of it. Deer are a lot better to eat than bears, like not even close. So that's fun since you've got the meat aspect of it. And then if you kill a big bear, they're just a pain, man. They're such an awful animal to move around. They're the worst. They're flexible in every direction. They're really greasy. They're covered in ticks, and it's just a lot to deal with if you kill a sure enough big bear. And And of course, you're not going to not shoot a big bear if that's what comes out. So you might have some real trouble on your hands. But both of them would be good options. Spring bear tags you can get over the counter in most states that have them, like Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. You could get those. You can just buy them, so you don't have to apply. It's not a big planning portion of it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it's that time of year is good. I remember I've been to New Zealand a couple of times hunting, and we always went in April, May, and it's a good time to go because the season's over here, and you've kind of had enough time to recover after the season here, because I think by the time the end of February comes, I'm ready to like do something else. I always kind of go hell for leather at for the last month of it, and kind of squeeze in as much, almost sicken yourself with hunting, if such a thing as possible.
It gets to be a lot, it gets to be a lot, and you get tired, a different kind of tired, but it doesn't take very long to forget either. And then pretty soon you're just jonesing to get back after it again.
Yeah. And I find during the hunting season, I lose a lot of strength, because it's very endurance based, and it's just a lot of slogging and carrying, and, just, cold and wet. And I think all that just eats calories and it eats body mass. And then the summer is a time to kind of get strong and, get all your mobility back, and, you're not up at the crack of dawn out before, up ungodly hour out, to get out and be in the right place at the right time, or you're not traveling, for multi-day hunts, and you're not, out butchering and processing meat all night. And it just seems like a lovely time of year that you can kind of focus on wellness and and get strong again to hit it hard in September, and hunt hard for another 6 months.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you use a bunch of fairly specialized equipment given just the uniqueness of your terrain and your vegetation and weather. I know, you mentioned Rob, but I know that Spartan tripods are part of your system. Is there anything else that you feel like is real specialized to what you are doing?
To be honest, the way I hunt, and the way we kind of my close friends in the hunting world, because of how and where we hunt. And I think it's not unique, but it's not that common, that there's far easier ways of going out and getting a deer. And I think that's probably the norm, I have little or no interest in shooting a deer in a farmer's field, or sitting in a high seat in forestry. And I've done it, and it's very effective if you need to manage the numbers on that, in that area. And guys get a good kick out of that, and that's, each to their own. But for me, it's the backpack. Good backpack for packing animals is super important, because the volume of deer that we're handling on an annual basis is huge. Good boots, Gore-Tex boots. I wear a little Gore-Tex putty, which is like a mini gaiter that I had a friend of mine make up a dozen sets of, and then a good set of gaiters. And other than that, it's a good rain gear. And you need it's a very damp climate, because it's so humid. It's, even when it's dry, you're wet, because the mountain is wet, and it's that soft, wet, soggy ground. And that's why everything is so green. So if you're not wearing a waterproof jacket on a sunny day on the mountain and you start crawling, then you're going to get wet. So you also need to keep breathable. But yeah, I think the most important items in my kit are the good set of gloves, good boots, backpack, and your waterproof layer. But it evolves, it evolves. I don't think there's anything super specialized, to be honest. Nothing a Western mountain hunter wouldn't be familiar with. What is very popular here, and we use a lot, especially guiding, that is quite specialized and not very common on your side of the pond, is quad sticks.
Yeah.
So quad sticks are like such an incredible tool. And when I met Rob first, we danced around my kitchen with his tripod, trying to make it into a set of quad sticks, and we did make it into a set of quad sticks, and it is now a quad and pent system that is aimed at, and we have sold to the special operations sniper niche, and it is super effective because it's a system that will allow you to observe and to fire from, and you can, it's hands-free, it's stable, in a 4-leg format, it is mobile, and it's adjustable, so it's all those things that you need, and the stability over a tripod is phenomenal.
Well, it's 2 points of contact. I mean, it's not even comparable.
Yeah. Now, I have done some training with guys, non-military guys, and you would think that when I introduce this system that I love and use all the time, and I think is the best thing since sliced bread, you would think in their hands it was the most useless piece of kit ever invented, because it needs a degree of practice and training to be useful, But yeah, I think it's probably very similar to Western mountain hunting.
Well, so you'll have to report back on that once you come over here and give Western hunting a try.
We'll have to do an exchange, James. Maybe I think is the best idea.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
We can compare notes, and you can put your Shannon mystery finally to bed. Step outside the doors of the arrivals terminal.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That sounds good. Well, sir, I thank you very much for your time. We're going to link to your Instagram here in the podcast description, but that's Will O'Meara Hunting, right?
That's right, James. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other place that people need to be following along in the action of what you're doing, or is there a better way for somebody to book you if they want to come and do a deer hunt in Ireland?
It's about all I can do to put up an occasional photograph on Instagram. So I think we'll keep it to that medium, and they can message me on that if they would like to come for an adventure in Ireland, and we'd be delighted to look after them. And I feel like we need another hour to fully explore for me to ask you lots of questions, because it seems like we have a lot in common.
Well, I'm here for you anytime, and this isn't going to be the last time you're on the show. So next time we'll get into more of that.
Happy days. We have lots of rabbit holes to go down and deep dive.
Yes, sir.
Happy days. Thanks, James.
Thanks again. So I found this old ad, and there's like dudes dressed up like construction workers, and a guy's got a jackhammer, and there's a crane, and they're moving all these big steel beams and stuff.
Aladdin Stanley Thermos. Stanley, the tough, all-steel thermos bottle that's completely dependable.
They're showing this thermos like falling off this building and hitting all this other construction stuff.
And built to take a bounding year after year. Get the top one.
Well, it lands in a wheelbarrow. The guy grabs it out of the wheelbarrow. Now he's going to pour himself a cup of coffee. I love these cheesy old ads. And most of the time, like, they're lying to us, right? That's most of what marketing used to be, was just like telling a lie, or at least telling a version of a lie that made you think that you needed this thing. But I'll tell you what, when it's cold out like it is right now, the only way to keep liquid and not freezing in your pack is by putting it in something that's insulated. So packing a thermos in the wintertime is really smart, whether it's for a hot beverage like coffee, or if you just want to bring some water with you, which is a really important thing if you're going to be out adventuring around in this snow that we've got all over the country. And I think you should be, because it's a great time of year to get out and about. This is both a comfort and a safety thing. If you want to get something from Stanley, which I encourage you to do, You can use the discount code 6RANCH, that's the number 6 in the word ranch, and that'll get you 25% off of just about anything on their website. I encourage you to do that. They're great supporters of the show and great supporters of this audience, and I love you guys. So stay warm out there, have a nice warm drink, and make sure you're drinking it out of a Stanley product. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. You can also rate the podcast and leave a review. Your support allows me to keep doing what I love, which is meeting incredible folks and sharing their stories with you. For more content and photos, follow the show on Instagram at 6Ranch Podcast or me at 6Ranch Outfitters. This episode was produced by Emily Brannigan, with original music written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the 6Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Christofferson. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode of the 6Ranch Podcast. I'll catch you next week.